Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ball is Round. I'm Hady Raphael, and tonight on the show, CF Montreal and Real Salt Lake can't win at the Stade Saputo. We'll take a look at the standings in the Eastern Conference, and of course, Jesse Marsch announces the Copa America squad. That and a lot more on episode 184 of The Ball is Round. And I'm joined tonight, as usual, by my very good friend, Elias Grigoriadis. Hey, Elias, how are you today?
I'm doing great. CF Montreal is back. The best month of soccer you could possibly get is here. So you know what? I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're spoiled right now. We
Oh
are
yeah.
spoiled. And you know what? The rest of the summer is going to be as nice as right now because we have the Olympics coming, Copa America coming. It's going to be really amazing to see everything, all this soccer, of course, Euros, so much stuff to do. And of course, the Olympics because soccer is nice, but also the other sports. It's going to be fun too.
Yes, more soccer.
More soccer, of course. Perfect. So let's get into this right away. We're going to talk about so many things. Of course, I said it last week. Eve is right now on holiday, so she won't be back for the next, I think, 2 or 3 episodes. Hey, Roberto, that says hi. Thanks for being here with us. Happy Father's Day, Roberto, and every father that's listening to us. Happy Father's Day. I think it's a good day for all fathers. It's so beautiful outside. I think we're all spoiled, so that's great. Also, I think the theme of the episode should be spoiled episode or something like that. I don't know. All right, let's start right away with the first subject. Of course, CF Montreal, the return of the CF Montreal in MLS. They were hosting Real Salt Lake, the first team in the Western Conference. And yes, everybody was very, very surprised knowing that Real Salt Lake was really the team to top the Western Conference in front of the LAFCs and the Seattle Sounders and the Portland Timbers and all those teams that we're used to see at the top. It was Real Salt Lake that was in number 1 spot. And at that point, of course, Laurent Courtois was very happy with his team last few performances. Three game unbeaten streak, and hoping to get to 4, and he managed to do that with a 0-0 score line at the end of the game. But let's look at the lineup that he decided to choose this last night. So the lineup was, of course, Jonathan Sirois in goal. The 3 defenders, 3 central defenders with George Campbell, Joel Waterman back in the lineup, Bernardo Alvarez on the left. And then the wing backs, we had Juan on the right, Joaquin Sosa again on the left. In the midfield, of course, with Samuel Piet and Mathieu Chouanière. With the national team, we had Victor Wanyama and Nathan Saliba. And up front, there was a few changes because Laurent Courtois decided to go with 2 offensive midfielders and 1 striker with Yankov and Duke and Sunusi Ibrahim up top. On the bench, that was, I think, the highlight of the night. A few returns with Mahalo Poku back, Matias Kokero back, Mason Toy back, and Lassi Lapalainen back, all from injury. When you saw that lineup, Elias, were you surprised? Were you happy? Were you disappointed? Tell me all about all your feelings.
I was happy because the aforementioned, but also Grayson Duty's back from injury, which is nice to see as well.
True,
even though he didn't get any play time. But my biggest thing was maybe a feeling of caution because you look at that lineup, and besides Juan, besides Sunusi, there's not a lot of pace on that lineup. In fact, you'd probably say that's probably the thing that sticks out the most is this is technically a strong team, but this is a slow team. And you look at Real Salt Lake, the first thing that pops up, it doesn't matter what game you watch, the first thing that pops up about Real Salt Lake is how quick they are when they press, how quick they are when they look to get forward, how quick they are just in general off the ball. It's a fast team, lots of pace. And I was concerned that, if they didn't grow into the game quickly, they could find themselves overrun. Um, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of pace on the bench, which is what we saw later, and we'll talk about that later. But that was probably my biggest concern was the fact that it's not a whole lot of quick people on the field right now to start the game.
And I agree. There wasn't a lot of pace, but you know what? Pace is coming, of course, because
Pace
we
is
have so many returns right now. But no, I agree. I
That's
agree.
really
It's a bit weird to see such a slow team. But again, Courtois didn't have a choice. I think
no, it's the hand he was dealt, right? So,
exactly. His choices were very very limited. Knowing everything, we'll talk about. We do have already a message from Michael saying the mystery Corbo goes on, and we might have an answer regarding Gabriele Corbo, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Let's talk about the performance, the individual performance, and let's start with the guy who was chosen man of the game by the fans at the stadium, Jonathan Sirois in net. How do you rate his performance?
this felt a lot more like last year's Jonathan Sirois. Super reliable whenever the ball's coming at him. There wasn't, at any moment where you're like, oh, he's in trouble. His distribution still has some question marks, right? When, ball on the ground, that's fine. But again, that's the bare minimum for a keeper nowadays is being able to make your 10, 15-yard passes consistently. But when he was under pressure and maybe he had to break lines, again, you saw it was a bit inconsistent. And I think that, again, feels like we're beating a dead horse, but that really is the only thing keeping him from getting to the next level. Because from a shot stopping perspective, last night he was flawless, right? He saved everything that came at him. There was no weird rebounds. There was no misjudging of balls, no misjudging of crosses. Everything was on point. It really just it feels like we're always coming back to this, and sometimes you have these games where you go, okay, yeah, he's making progress, and okay, yeah, no, this is a much better game where his long balls are pinged perfectly and everything is flowing, and then there's games like this where yeah, there was some good ones, but there was some ones where he was really uncontested and the ball went out for a throw or went straight to the opposition. And it's stuff like that you ask yourself why he's not being called up to the national team. And it's not for a shot stopping reason, because you can't fault him for the way he keeps the ball out of the net. Modern day goalkeeping is not just that, right? So I think that's it always sticks out because we know he's good for the rest.
Yeah, but we know he's good for the rest, but he didn't make a lot of those, you know, last ditch saves since the beginning of this season in 2024. And
No.
we saw him do that yesterday,
Yeah.
which is already something that's better than what we've seen this year. So for me, that's very positive. But I agree with you. Distribution wise, it's a bit tough, and that's why I was a bit surprised that he was chosen as the man of the match. For me, there were other players that were a lot better and were a bit flawless. I think in that team, and we'll talk about it a bit later. But what I like about Jonathan Sirois, I think that in a way, yes, of course, he wasn't selected to go to the Copa America, but I feel that in a way he's gonna that experience that he's gonna gain by staying with the club right now when the club really needs him. I think it's gonna help him a lot more than being a third goalkeeper with the Canadian national team. I think he has everything. He has everything that's needed to be with the Canadian national team. I'm pretty sure that he will have his share of call ups in the next few seasons or even in the next few years. I'm pretty sure he's going to be called up again. But I think that's a good thing. I think for him, of course, for CF Montreal too, but for him specifically. So can't wait to see how he's gonna build on that very good performance. I'm not going to say stellar performance because again, he made quite a few mistakes with his distribution and could have cost us a goal a couple of times. But at the end of the day, let's talk about the defense. The three center backs: George Campbell, Joel Waterman, and of course our very good friend, and that's who was the third one? George Campbell,
Alvarez.
Alvarez. Sorry, man. I just completely had a blank here. Yeah. So and Fernando Alvarez. Talking about distribution, Campbell made quite a few mistakes too, distribution wise. Alvarez and Waterman a bit less, but I feel that Alvarez could have offered a bit more options sometimes when to the player that had the ball. But the rest, he was really very, very, very good defensively. And we talked about it together yesterday, Elias, right after the game. Joel Waterman had
Joel Waterman.
a stellar performance. For me,
Yeah.
the man of the game, as easy as that. For me, there's no questions about it. He was the man of the game, not only as a center back, because as a center back, he was everywhere. He did everything right. And even after as a midfielder, he's the one that creates the danger quite a few times
Yeah.
by sending long balls. Don't forget that he is his natural position was midfielder when he was at college, right? So he knows the position. He knows it very very well, and he was really really good in that position too. So very good, I think, performance overall. Even if George Campbell's distribution was a bit shaky, the rest was pretty good. Fernando Alvarez, we said it quite a few times here on the ball is round. His timing uh,
Mhm.
on the his aerial capabilities and his timing whenever he jumps is really stellar. He was most of the time like really marking very well his player. He didn't put a foot wrong the whole game. I think the only thing is that maybe whenever we had the ball, I think he could have been better positioned a few times. But that's very very small, and I'm being very very picky. But the three man mid central defenders, I think, did a pretty decent job. No.
Oh, I think it was the highlight of the game. Was that three back, and yeah, George Campbell didn't have his best game with the ball, but without the ball, it was nice to see him go back to a point where defensively he was very solid. There weren't any mistakes. There wasn't any glaring lacks of positioning. It seems like him and Gowan are back on the same page, which is good to see. And yeah, no, like you said, right, Alvarez. I think his understanding with Sosa is still developing. I think maybe that's why because both of them sometimes were in weird positions. They switched an awful lot, whenever it suited them. So I think that they're still kind of learning that relationship, and the fact that Raheem Edwards is in and out of the lineup consistently, and you had the span where Ariel Lassiter was the wing back of choice, and now it's Joaquin. So I think the fact that there's no real consistency yet doesn't really help because, yeah, in a vacuum, Alvarez was excellent, but it's those low positioning things that they didn't get hurt by today, but other games it has hurt them, and that's also why teams have in the past, almost explicitly targeted that side of the defense because sometimes there is that lapse in communication or familiarity with one another that leaves those spaces. And I mean, like you said, Joe Waterman, right? What he didn't put a foot wrong all night.
He was
Everything he
wow.
did went off without a hitch. It's one of those games where as a defender, you try and like almost be invisible in that you make no mistakes, but his lack of mistakes almost made it stand out, right? Especially during the sloppier parts of the game where both teams really couldn't string more than like 3, 4 passes together. He was constantly, you know, breaking up plays. He was restarting he was doing everything that Rudy Camacho, who, we had hoped he would replace, did so well. And he did that at the same level, if not, better than at least the standard of Rudy Camacho. And I think that, games like this are so important, especially for And he talked about a bit after the game. Jean Dacier and Joel Waterman that weren't initially called up for the national team. Games like this are what put you back in contention for it because it stands out and you make yourself, you put yourself back on the radar as someone who is not just in the running, but who can compete at such a level where you're playing against the second best attack in MLS. You are basically man marking the front runner for MVP, and he did nothing. Araujo was invisible all game, right? He had
Yeah,
maybe one shot that ended up off target, but everything else he was completely marked out of the game, and that was, you know, again, it's a team effort when it's someone like that. But when he's always occupying Joel Waterman's space, a lot of the credit goes to Joel Waterman, and that's why like we talked about after the game, this may be his best game in a CF Montreal jersey. It was, I can't. We could devote the entire podcast to how well Joel Waterman played. We're gonna move on, but hats off to him. He was spectacular.
he was very spectacular. And let's answer right away. Roberto, he said he must have known he was being called up. No, he didn't. He told us during the presser that he only knew after the game. He went back to the locker room and he had a text from Jesse Marsch. They spoke and he was told that he was chosen for the Copa America to replace Junior Hoylett. We'll talk about it in the last segment. So he didn't know prior to the game. So this is how professional Joel Waterman is. This guy is really so interesting and I think so undervalued, because he's very, very good. Of course, he's not. He does make a few mistakes here and there. Does have a bad game from time to time, but his professionalism, the
Hmm.
way he picks himself up after a bad performance is really amazing. Really, really amazing. Great
It was
guy,
nice to see him
great
with the armband
teammate,
too. Very deserved.
and great captain. That was what I wanted to say. 100%. A true leader, says Patrick White. I pick how he referred to the back line as my back line yesterday
Hmm.
in the post game, and exactly this is what how a leader talks, and it shows right away when Joel Waterman, meets the media. Let's talk about those two wing backs, Juan on the right, and of course Joaquin Sosa on the left. How did you find them yesterday? They weren't as decisive and incisive as they were
Hmm.
recently, but still a decent game for them, no?
They're both so delightfully frustrating in their own unique way. That's the best part. Juan, this was, Juan had a tough go of it, the last few games, and this was nice to see him back, getting forward, getting into space, getting in one-on-one situations. But it's this little shoulder shimmy he does when he tries to take someone on one-on-one. It aggravates me because it seems like everyone has to stop until he's done doing his little shimmy, and it just feels like everybody kind of hiccups, and it throws a wrench in the counterattack. And because he got in really good positions, but then the ball was either too early or it was too late, or it was just, it seemed like it was off by half a step all the time. And that was so frustrating because he got in the right positions, which is the majority of the work. That's the difficult part. The final thing will come, but it's just it was, he got so many looks going forward. He was so many one-on-one situations that you know earlier in the season the opposing fullback is dead automatically. He would get by him without thinking twice, and it's almost as if there's like this element of doubt where he doesn't really know what he has to do anymore. So I'd love to see him simplify his game. And for Sosa, it's almost the exact opposite because he's so good with the ball at his feet that why is he just always passing the ball backwards, right? Break lines. He's so good at breaking lines when he was playing at center back, but the second he gets a bit further forward, he just passes backwards. His crosses are not as good. I mean, he's a left back and a center back. He's a bit of both, but like he's not, for example, a left back and a wing back where he's often on the flank in advanced position. So I understand why that still needs work, but he has technically he's good enough to be a lot more assertive, and I want to see him become more aggressive. And you know Laurent Courtois said it after the game a little bit too. I don't think we were ambitious enough, you know,
Uh,
and I think that a lot of that happens because, you know, maybe it's the psychological factor that, you know, this team has only lost one game on the road. The Real Salt Lake has only lost one game on the road, and they're a very strong team. And maybe, you know, you don't want to mess up because if you get hit back on the counter with their pace, you're done. And maybe that led to a little bit of second guessing themselves. But you're at home, you have the momentum, especially in those runs of play where they were, you know, they were dictating the tempo. They kind of just stopped. I really want to see them kind of put their foot on people's necks and twist.
you know what? I agree with you, but I also disagree with you because I agree with you in most of the situations. That's exactly what I would have said. But against Real Salt Lake, I don't know if you realized how many runners they had offensively. There
Hmm.
were four.
Yeah,
Four. Really playing with the back line. Four. That's how offensive they were away from home. And I think that Sosa and Juan had their hands full most of the time defensively. And because they worked so hard defensively, I think they lacked that bit of oomph to go forward. And they worked their butt off to
mm,
be good defensively, and they did that very, very well. You talked about Arango, Chicho not really getting a situation. Julio got a few, yes.
mhm.
Gomez was a very tough guy to defend, and
Luna was
specifically
on
in
it
the
too.
first 20 minutes. So I don't know. I feel that the reason why they weren't that incisive is because they had so much to do defensively that unfortunately, took a lot of energy and a lot of stamina from them that really didn't left a lot in the tank for them to go forward with. But I agree with you. That's most of the time at home you need more. And Laurent Courtois, as you said it in the presser that we need more. But I think that we needed more also from the midfield, and I think that's a good transition
Hmm. Yeah,
to the midfielders. Wanyama, Saliba. Honestly, we disagreed on that yesterday when
a
we
little bit.
talked a
Yeah.
bit. Uh, Saliba, Wanyama, for me, in the first half, were very, very bad. Both of them. Like, very, very bad. What I like about Wanyama is that he's able to, you can very rarely pick the ball from him.
Hmm.
He barely loses the ball. And that was the good thing about Victor Wanyama. But the problem is, the guy doesn't run anymore. He just doesn't run. He tries, and you feel that it seems so hard for him to run. And that's a big problem. If you look at the way Laurent Courtois likes his midfielders to play, they have to be very, very mobile. And
Yeah.
he doesn't have it in him. It seems maybe he's gonna need a bit of match practice, a bit of match fitness in order to get the engine going. But yesterday, it was very, very tough for him. And Nathan Saliba in the first half, he got better in the second. What I like about Nathan Saliba is that he is able to drive the ball forward by
Hmm.
dribbling, by making a few runs by a bit like Kone, but not as good as him. But he does have that
Okay.
same ability to really push the ball forward and find some teammates. But yesterday, his distribution was very, very bad. I think in the first half, I counted at least four passes that went straight to the opposition.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a big, big, big problem because that made the defending that much tougher because every time he used to give the ball to the opposition, right away there was another set of pressure on all the defenders, and that was very, very tough. At one point, I think I looked at the stats. I think at the 10th or 15 minutes, I think we had 15% of possession or 20% of possession. Was because unfortunately nobody was able to build something interesting. The pressure of Real Salt Lake was very, very interesting and worked very well. But at the same time, that's when you expect your two midfielders to really get
Mhm.
you out of this mess. And they weren't able to do that. So for me, it was very tough. I think Nathan Saliba really, in the second half, got better
Yeah.
because he found those pockets of space here and there. He was able to drive the ball forward like he used to do. And at the same time, Victor Wanyama, I think when he got substituted and Waterman came up as midfielder, I think we saw a big difference. I don't think that Victor Wanyama is finished. I still think that he can be very, very good. But yesterday it was very tough for him. So I don't know if you saw it differently than me yesterday.
No, I mean, I think we're kind of on the same boat. I think that Nathan Saliba is much better suited to do what Samuel Piet does than what Mathieu Choinière does in terms of you're just looking at roles. I think he is a little bit of a hybrid of both in that he would be better off doing. He's better suited to do the work that Samuel Piet does, but he can do that driving the ball forward, carrying it. He runs very hard. He's got a great touch. I think that he has that element to his game. The problem is you're asking him to do it next to someone like you said that isn't running. And when you're trying to break lines against a team that's basically swarming around you like bees, that's not how you play out from the back. And like you
Exactly.
said, right, Victor Wanyama, who's so good at keeping the ball off others, got his pocket picked a couple times because if you double team him because he's moving at half speed, it doesn't matter how good his execution is because by the time he gets to the point where he's about to execute pass through ball anything, they're already double teaming him. So I think therein lies your big problem where, and it kind of, you know, goes back to Patrick's question where it's who else, right? Because then you're looking at
Yeah,
a very
that
young
was
midfield,
his
a
question. So
very young
go ahead.
midfield duo, right? Because you have Zouir, Saliba, Wanyama. In terms of midfielders, you have Iliadis, you have Duke that can drop back, but I don't think Laurent Courtois is willing to compromise or alter his entire midfield and attacking lineup just to accommodate Victor Wanyama. So now begs the question, when you come up against teams that love to press you as much as they do, and teams will see that if Victor Wanyama is in the starting lineup, you have green light to press almost as hard as you can because yeah, he got out of trouble a couple times, but you're gonna find joy a lot more times than you're gonna get burned. And I
Yeah,
think teams will make that trade every single time. So now that's my biggest concern with that midfield pairing. I think having Nathan Saliba with someone that can play a bit further up the field and let him have the job of the running because like you said in the second half when he was doing more of the pivot role and he was kind of helping the ball move side to side and getting out of pressure, he did much better. So I think
yeah,
that's just the fact that we haven't seen Nathan Saliba in a while due to injury. I think with this Copa America, this is the perfect chance for him to really kind of
of course, of
make
course.
make his value known.
We're not. I'm not saying personally that he's not good. He is very good, but I'm not sure that the way Laurent Courtois wants to see his midfielders play suits him. That's my only concern. And I'll join a bit what Andy's saying about Wanyama. Wanyama is not a proactive midfielder. He's a midfielder that prefers to wait, to receive the ball, and make a play. I completely agree with Andy, but unfortunately, this is not what Laurent Courtois wants from his midfielders. He wants very mobile midfielders. And as a matter of fact, that's what Jesse Marsch wants, and we'll talk about that a
It's
bit
not a
later.
coincidence.
It's not a coincidence at all. So you need to have those mobile midfielders. I would have loved to see Rida Zuhir in that lineup, replacing Victor Wanyama at one point. I think he would have been a better pairing with Nathan Saliba than Victor Wanyama. But I don't know why he wasn't even in the 18th. I did try to get the info. From what I heard, it seemed, but like it's just a rumor. I'm not really sure of my source, but it seems like um, some sort of punishment Aridasu here. Not sure if that's true. So I need to go back and ask more questions, but seems that very not very disciplined Aridasu here from what I heard. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, you need something else than Victor Wanyama, or you need Victor Wanyama to really step up a bit more. And I don't know if he has it in him. So we'll see. We'll see. Moving on. The two offensive midfielders, and just to
Sure.
go back also on what Patrick said, asking Duke to drop back. I'm not sure I like that because defensively, he's really not good, Bryce Duke. Physically, the physicality that you need to have in the midfield, I think it's a bit too much for someone like him to be playing deep in the midfield. He needs to play a bit further. He needs to sit on the bench, either or. But let's talk about them both. So Dominic Yankov, Bryce Duke. I think, is it the first time or the second time that they start together? I think the
I
second
think it's
time
the
that they
second
start.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find them? Did you like what you saw from
The one time Wellington's not in here. Um,
Yeah, where's
I
Wellington?
thought I thought they were both so off of it last night. They both couldn't really tap into the flow of the game. They both couldn't find the spaces for more than maybe, you know, a couple of sequences before they kind of fade back into the background. They would both pop up, do one or two good things, and then kind of disappear for another 5 minutes. And it's always just like you have the capability to do it because I just saw you do it like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Why are you not doing this more consistently? And that therein lies my biggest frustration is the fact that it almost felt like they were playing catch up. Robbie actually just said it right. It looks like they were trying to play catch up all night or for the entirety of their stint until they got subbed out. And it's I understand that this position, Laurent Courtois is asking a lot of you, especially when you're always changing that front three and you don't really have any kind of continuity and stuff like that. Like there's always a reason, but games like this where it's almost like expressly designed for you to break the game open because there's such a strong press that there will be those gaps, and there were those gaps, and they found those gaps, and then they would just like almost intentionally avoid those gaps after having just successfully exploited them. So I that's my biggest problem with both of them because they were both guilty of it on several occasions. It's kind of just like an almost an unwillingness to keep on pressing. And this, I feel like this is a common theme for the entire team, but I think Duke and Yankov maybe highlighted it the most. It's almost a willingness to not continuously press your advantage or your good mismatch, right? And if you have that mismatch where you have this creative midfielder that can get into the pockets and then find your fullback or find your striker making a run behind, they do it and then they go, "That was successful. I'm not going to do it again for another 10 minutes." Why? And that was probably the most frustrating thing because they both genuinely had some moments where they were playing well, and it seemed that they were tapped in. They like, okay, they finally grew into the game, and then they withdrew completely. And Alosada said it last year. When you have a 10 in this league, if you have a proper out and out 10, and they had two on the field today, they have to be someone that's decisive. They have someone that could take the game by the scruff of the neck and say, I am taking over the tempo. I am making sure that this is how the game goes. And they can't do that yet for an extended amount of time. I think that's the biggest problem. And I think that I'd like to see, now that we have players, now we can see that players are on the way back from injury. I'd like to see a couple games with some more assertive players, some players who have a different profile than the the technical dribbling half spaces. I want to see more of an out and out winger like Mahala or someone like even Toy who came on for Yankov was an improvement because it was more direct and he took the game to Salt Lake City. So I think that was I have a lot of frustrations with Duke and Yankov from last game, but that boils it down the best I can.
Honestly, I agree with you with Duke. Honestly, I think that Bryce Duke really didn't have a good game yesterday. He tried a few things. He's still very good technically. When he has the ball at his feet, he's very good. Sometimes I think he needs to play a bit faster. He needs to think a bit faster. Sometimes I think he takes a bit too much time to give that perfect pass. If you're gonna, go for a perfect pass, you have to do it right away. This is the difference between a good player and a great player.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, the fact that first of all he's so slow, sorry, but like this guy needs to work his pace. It's just not normal at this level to be that slow. It's just not normal. He needs to be a lot faster. And second of all, I agree about what again Andy says. He says talking about Bryce Duke plays really well with the ball on his feet, but he's getting out muscled, and I agree with him. Getting out muscled so much that it's starting to become a liability. Now for Dominic Yankov, that's where I think you're a bit too harsh on him. Um, I like what I see from Yankov. Yes, sometimes it's a bit slow, but he's never going to be. He's not as slow as Bryce Duke, of course, and he's never going to be that pacey player. What I like about him is his positioning. He understands the game very, very well, and you see it. The first major chance that CF Montreal got was for him. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
he shot it directly on Zach McMath, and let's say it. Zach McMath had, made a great save too because he was able to really grab the ball too.
Hmm.
He didn't just parry it, right? So I think that was very good also from Zach McMath. But I think that Yankov is doing very well. I really think that for someone that's now only barely getting now minutes, he's still learning the Courtois way yet. And and he says it in the first part of his message. In his opinion, Yankov needs a year to adapt to the MLS. He's playing so clumsy with ball on his feet. I don't agree that he was clumsy. I think he needs to adapt not only to MLS but also to Laurent Courtois' system. And I think he's not adapted yet, but I still feel that he's a lot closer. Every time that he gets minutes, he gets closer to what we want to see from him. And Patrick says, I want to see Yankov, Opoku, and Kokaro in the starting 11. You know what? That's what I
We
want
all
to
do.
see too.
Join the
That's
club.
what that's what I want to see too. Or when Martinez gets back, I would like to see Mahala, Kokaro, and Martinez, and I think that's going to be very very interesting too. With
I
Mahala
think
playing
that's
just a bit
that's the one we've
behind.
all been waiting to see,
Yeah,
is
exactly,
those three together. But again,
exactly,
now that they're coming back, we have all these these, I can't even, it's weird saying dream combinations, but like, yeah, they're dream combinations because we haven't seen any of them for months. But
exactly.
yeah, it, and I'd love to see how it changes everyone else, because if you have people like Mahala, people like Kokoro who can carry the ball, does that open up space for Juan? Does that, make the midfield's life easier in that they don't have to make a super line breaking pass, but you can play it. It opens up all these other alternative possibilities. And I think Laurent Courtois is now finally saying, okay, I can actually start coaching now, and you know add some variety to my tactics, because when you're playing with the same team week in week out because everyone else is injured, you get predictable.
Yeah, and again, let's talk about the last player, and then we'll
Hmm.
talk about the comments we received. We received a few comments here from a few people. Sunisi Ibrahim,
So see Ibrahim.
he was so good.
Yeah, especially in that first half.
Wow, what a player he's become. Honestly, I never thought a guy like him could play the target man role as good as him. He's been wow. Honestly, playing with his back to the goal very, very well, helping the team transition from a defensive approach to an offensive approach. He did all that to the perfection.
Yeah.
And we talked about that chance from Yankov, saved by Zach McMahon. It comes from Sunusi Ibrahim. The
Hmm.
two big chances of CF Montreal the first 60 minutes, it started with Sunusi Ibrahim doing what he does. And he's been really, really good. And I want to know why Laurent Courtois pulled him off. I still don't understand it too. I tried to ask him the question yesterday, but he didn't like my question, so he avoided it a bit. But why did you remove Sunusi Ibrahim that was having
Hmm.
a great game? Why? Do you have an answer? Do you think that he was out of stamina at one point?
He did do a lot more running than he usually does, right? He didn't have Lassiter there. He didn't have Toy there. He didn't have Hussein there. Duke and Yankov are not going to be the ones doing the running. So he did a lot more running than he normally does. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the reason. Because, again, like you said, right, this is only the second time they've played with two and out 10s. Usually there's another runner there that can actually, help with the press, have the Sunusi drop off, and the other one can lead the press. It was really just Sunusi doing a lot more running than he normally does. And we talked about how good his conditioning's gotten, and how it's clear he made a concerted effort to get more fit. And, you know, that only does so much because at some point you stop being effective if you're just constantly running for an hour, basically. And also, I think that it's just also the fact that he wants to bring in some of the people that got injured, that are coming back from injury. I think it's good to give them a run, especially at home. In a game that maybe he felt like the balance was at a tipping point and he wanted something that maybe jumpstart the match and jumpstart the momentum. Adding someone like Kokoro, adding someone like Mahala, that's what that's what it's going to do to the game. So I don't think it was a performance thing because you can't really fault Sunusi. He had, like you said, he was playing excellent. But I do think that he was looking at maybe the state of the game and going, right now it's going to end 0-0. And if I don't do something to maybe give the game a shot in the arm, then it's going to end 0-0. And so I can't really fault him for that. But yeah, it definitely is not a detraction from Sunusi, who was, at least for the first half, was probably the most important player of the game. Even though Joel Walden was the best player of the game, I think he was the most important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. Very interesting. We did talk about the lack of options offensively for CF Montreal for the past 2 months. But right now, we have so many options offensively with all those players coming back. The problem is
And
you
there's
don't
still
have
more coming
options,
back.
but you don't have options in the midfield. You don't have options in defense. Now that's our big problems right now. So in the midfield right now, we only have Wanyama, Saliba, and Zuhir. Maybe Iliadis, as you said a bit earlier. That's it. And in defense, looking at the next game, you have only Corbo, and I saw Andy's tweet during right after the game when he said that he saw him uh, like complaining about his foot, or his hamstring, like it was pulled or something. So I'm not really sure if you can confirm that, Andy. But is it because he was injured that he didn't start the game? That's a possibility. But right now we will have only as defenders, or only central defenders. We only have Campbell, Sosa, and Corbo. Nobody else.
And Alvarez.
Jabang is injured,
Is
and
Alvarez going to the
Alvarez.
Olympics? I don't think so. Right? Oh,
Uh,
they didn't qualify. I don't think they qualified.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I didn't
I don't think
qualify.
Venezuela made
They
it.
didn't qualify. They didn't qualify.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Don't worry about it. We'll be all right. No,
I don't know, man. I'm
yeah, no.
scared
Look, I
because
think Jabang is still out with an injury. He was one of the
yeah,
few people still left on the injured list. Grayson Duty has come back. I think, again, he hasn't had any minutes yet, but it would be nice to see where he kind of fits in all this. I think find the chance to give him um a run would be nice. I would have liked to see it, during the Canadian Championship, but he was injured then. So and they were also playing terribly. So I get it, but I think ultimately the depth at the depth at the back is not as bad when they're not doing as much running. I think Juan is, has almost become used to the workload. Raheem Edwards seems to be on his way back. We still don't really know how severe the injury was. I'm sure they know that internally, but it hasn't really been communicated. And I think that we'll know a bit more hopefully soon because, there's only so long that you can play with basically six defenders before cracks start to show, like you said. But I think right now, or at least in the immediate future, they're okay, assuming everyone's still fit and Corbo's not doesn't have any kind of knock that'll keep him out of Wednesday's game. The midfield is where there is cause for concern because now there's just a lot of variables, unknown
Yeah.
variables that you can't really like. I'd like to see Zuir and Saliba next game because I wasn't sold by Wanyama. But the thing is, we haven't seen Saliba and Zuir play together. They have very similar profiles, but they're both very young and still relatively untested. So it's all these. That's where my bigger concern is. The defense is the defense, and they still have right now. They have the personnel to more than to play the game more than well enough. It's the midfield where we don't have any answers, and the thing is, you can only speculate until you see the actual product on the field. So that I think should definitely causes more concern for me than the defense.
Yeah, and I can confirm, Patrick, that no, he Alvarez is not going to Copa
No,
America. He wasn't in the squad that was selected. Even if like the prelim squad, he wasn't selected either. So he's not going to Copa America. And he's answering our question. He doesn't want to confirm anything, of course, because he doesn't have. He's not sure 100%, but he did see the trainers signaling like Corbo needed to stop, and one of them seemed to do a hand gesture like there was a pull. He was pulled from the group running. So we'll see more at training for sure tomorrow. Let's talk about the subs because there was, I think it's been a while that we didn't see five subs from the Courtois,
it's because
but
they
he
didn't have five
used
people on the bench.
exactly. So he used first of all Mason Toy, Matias Kokaro at the 61st minute, Gabriel Corba at the 73rd with Kwado Opoku and Lassi Lapalainen. How did you find those substitutions? We talked about the fact that we were surprised to see Sunusi, go out, but the one that were subbed in, you said also that Toy, you liked what you saw from him when he came in, and the rest.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Toy brought some more physicality, some more energy. I think that kind of needed it. Oh God, I miss Kokoro so much.
Yeah, yeah,
How can you
so
not?
good.
How can like
He was so close to
the
get a to
second
get a red card though, but whatever.
took him what a minute and a half to get booked? So I mean,
I know it's crazy. It's
it's like he
crazy.
never left. But no, you could tell the second he stepped off on the field, everyone almost they let off a sigh of relief and cheered very loudly. But it was almost just like, thank God he's back, because as well as Sanusi's done, he can't do it alone, and he can't be the only striker on the team. So it was nice to see him back. Same goes for Mahala and Lassie. Lassie, who on the right side, um, brought that decisiveness that I wanted to see from Juan. Right, especially when he got further forward, it was one or two touches and he made a play. So it was nice to see that from Lassie. It's just no, please stay fit, because having someone like Lassie off the bench is a
Yeah,
great thing
it's
to
a good
have.
thing. That's a
Because
good
just like
thing.
Lassiter, he can play the flank, he could play as the inside forward, he could play wherever you need him to play. And he kind of brings almost like that right-footed Lassiter kind of approach to attacking. And oh, Mahala, he's so good. Um, yeah, I think that once he gets in midseason, once he gets maybe midseason form, at least has a couple more appearances under his belt, and really puts the ankle thing behind him, um, it's going to be almost like he never left. I think he has such this unbridled enthusiasm that it really is contagious. You could see his smile from the press box, and and yeah, I think Tate asked us a question about it too. I
Yeah.
believe. Um, And yeah, I think we all saw that Joel Waterman had picked out a beautiful pass, and Mahala just hit it wide. And then, like Tate said, late in the match, Opoku took a shot, and it seemed he may have re-injured himself. Did anyone else see him limping after that? How worried are you? I was a little concerned because, I saw that too, where he stayed down for half a second and then was limping a little bit, but he seemed to walk it off. So I don't know how serious that was. Maybe it's just a lack of match fitness and maybe some stiffness, but he seemed to have played it off and then was running soon after. So hopefully it's not too much of a cause for concern. I'd like to not have a cause for concern for once, for God's sakes, but I guess that's another case where you kind of have to wait and see, kind of like Corbo, that it's really just an oops and not something significant.
Exactly. We do have another question, and that's from Dr. Foot. He asked us if we were surprised about the starting 11. We talked about that a bit later. And then he asked questions saying, with the return of so many injured players, which players will have less playing time now that the injured are back? I would say Sunusi, Vilsa, uh, maybe Duke. I think Duke will have less playing time too. I don't think Yankov will have less. I think he will build on that and have as much playing time as he has right now. I think Duke Sunusi and Vilsan are gonna have less time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about right. I think Toy. I think once Vincent comes back, Toy
Toy
will
too. Yeah,
kind of be not phased out completely, but like he was like second string ish, and he's gonna fall to like third, maybe fourth string, if you look at the proper nines. Um, I mean, him and Vincent are the only really tall guys in the
yeah.
attacking core, which does give him some kind of uniqueness. But at the end of the day, um, I don't think height really is that much of a factor when you're
No,
looking to there's a sub.
unless you
So
have very good heading capacities, which they don't.
and unless the other
So
team all has like 5'6" center backs, which never happens. So I mean, like that's not really consideration anymore. So I think that especially since they love playing with the ball on the ground for the most part, I think that Mason Toy from a profile perspective may see his minutes reduced from like once in a blue moon to virtually none. Which is a shame because again, I didn't think he did that all that badly
he
in
did well. He did
when he
well.
came
He
off the
should have
bench. He almost
scored.
scored. He should have scored.
And
That touch on the keeper
and
was
Laurent
a bit
Courtois
heavy.
talked about this
Yeah, it
when
was
I
a bit
asked him
heavy.
the question. I didn't ask about Mason Toy missing the chance, but he wanted to talk about it, and he said that Mason really wanted to shoot the ball between the legs of the central defender,
Yeah,
and the central defender played very well. But you look, if Laurent Courtois chose to talk about that moment, that means
he
that
remembered.
he wasn't
Yeah.
very happy with the finishing product. So,
No, I mean you
I don't
can't
know.
blame him either, right? You're the coach and you see that happen. You're no,
No, for sure.
I want my players to finish, and I don't care how they do it, but I want them to obviously avoid any unnecessary things that could block that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think Mason Toy and Snooze would be the ones they'll see probably the biggest decrease in minutes. I think Visay will kind of stay the same because he does bring
yeah,
his own thing. And yeah, Duke as well. I think, with Mahala and Yankov and Martinez, when everyone's fully back, I think it's going to be kind of scarce for him for sure.
yeah. And Andy says, in his opinion, Sunusi has earned himself a starting spot alongside the injured. Can't say the same for Vincent Autoy. I'm not sure. I like from at times. I think Vincent was very very good too. So I don't know. I think that Vincent and Sunusi have earned maybe more minutes than Toy. That I agree.
Hmm.
But still, you still have Kokaro, you still have Martinez, you still have Opoku. Those three players
Yeah,
are gonna be
ahead.
starters before, exactly ahead of Sunusi and Vilsan. That's for sure. So we'll see. We'll see about that. We do have one last question from Patrick that he sent us. He says, "Am I the only one that's starting to think that Renard was pushed out more than resigned? I find it hard to think that Gervais was happy with the club's performance, regardless of the injuries. The roster just isn't strong enough, can't keep dropping points at home. I hope there is a change in the sporting philosophy. I prefer a couple of stars, Piatti style type, not Drogba, and maybe a bit less depth. The depth can be the projects and academy kids. Just give me something to be excited about. Right now, there isn't much. I'm gonna answer if you don't mind,
Go
Elias,
ahead.
because I don't agree at all with
I didn't think you
Patrick.
would.
So first of all, no, Olivier Renard was not pushed. Olivier Renard resigned. That I can say as a fact. Uh, they didn't want him to leave, but he did. So that's the first thing. Second thing, the philosophy wasn't set by Olivier Renard. It's set by the club, by the board of directors. It's not an Olivier Renard thing. So, not at all. It's not going to change. You're not going to see stars anymore. This is not what CF Montreal wants to do. So, forget about it. It's not going to happen. Okay. And again, this is not speculation. This is these are facts. My answer are facts. I will give you the now a speculation and my own opinion regarding the roster. I think the roster is pretty good. I really believe that the roster is very good. Right now, again, we have so many players not here. We have injured people that are not yet 100%. Again, you look at the stats yesterday, we had a higher expected goals than Real Salt Lake. Yes, Real Salt Lake had more shots, but the expected goals were to CF Montreal. The reason why we created very good chances. We talked about that chance from Yankov at the beginning of the game. We can talk about that chance from Toy, and we can talk about that chance from Mahala Opoku. They didn't have so much clear cut chances than us yesterday. And again, do not forget that this is the top team in the West. If we have all our players, we are a stronger team. We are a playoffs team. But we need to make sure that those players are fit. And unfortunately, they've never been fit since the beginning of the season, all of them together. And that's a big problem. That's a big worry. I like the way the squad is built. Of course, if you're expecting an MLS Cup, do not follow CF Montreal this year because they're not going to win the cup. But making it to the playoffs, playing some very good games, creating chances, you're going to see a lot more of that if and only if you have fit players and a fit group. Anything else to add, Elias?
No, kind of hit the nail on the head. I think even now they're a playoff team, honestly.
Yeah, they're not far.
And obviously they're going to win the MLS Cup. I don't know what you're talking about, but I think no,
Oh,
like
come on, Elias.
no, obviously
Even
that
you can't be that optimistic.
no, I'm taking the piss a little bit,
I
but
know.
they're a playoff team now. They're maybe a piece or two away from being real, not contenders in the East, but one of the better teams in the East. I'm talking about top three. They're maybe a piece or two away, honestly, and another year under Courtois. And I think if they really get on the same page, they can do some really fun stuff. But I think the gap at the top right now, they don't have a 20 goal scorer on the team right now. And I think ultimately midfielders and defenders and all these pieces are very good. But at the end of the day, especially in MLS, you need a 20 goal scorer. Or at least a 15 and 10 or something. Like
But
at
you will
least
have if you have the
mid.
Joseph Martinez and the Matias Kokaro fit, they would have been that 15 to 20 goal scorers.
Between them, yes, but there's no
Yeah,
one player that can.
it's okay if you can deliver as a team. That's more than enough. At the end of the day, I don't think you need a 20 goal player. I think you need a team that scores 50 goals. That's what you need.
Yeah, but that's just even the Union have Gazdag, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah, but
right?
we
The
did it.
women who
Okay,
win games by committee.
who did we have with Nasi that
It was
scored 20
Georgie.
goals? He did. Did he score 20 goals?
Georgie was the front runner for the MVP. He was on pace for
I
like
understand, but
20
he
and
didn't
20.
score 20 goals.
No, no, he
Okay, but
didn't.
that's
But
what I'm
also, but at the
saying.
same time, when Mihailovic got hurt, you had Romel Kyoto who was scoring a goal a game,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But that's what I'm saying. You can have a team of players that can play that role all together, as long as when someone is out of form, the other one really lights up, and vice versa. That's what you need.
That's a big.
But
This team feels more like a team that wins games as a by committee than having a play any one game breaker. You have Martinez that can pop off for
yeah, of
a goal and
course.
two assists like you did against like like he did
And
before he got
Kokaro
injured.
too.
But again, Kokaro is not this all powerful guy that can finish from anywhere and,
He
and
can
and take
be.
people on with the dribble.
He can
He's
be.
it's Grinta personified, right? That's
Yeah,
what
but
you
you
get from
can't.
Kokaro.
That's more than enough. This guy can score hat tricks if he has the right service.
He draws three penalties.
Two. Yeah, why not? Let's talk about. We do have a few of our listeners that really interacted with us. So just small talk about Piatti. Roberto saying Piatti was not exactly a star when he came here, and Francesco saying no, but he was still very respected in Argentina. So that closes the Piatti's chat. Now we do have. Patrick saying thanks for the answer. He likes to stir the pot. I know, Patrick.
That's why we love you too,
Uh,
Patrick.
that's why we love interacting with you. Then we do have uh, Andy again that says they can have a very decent shot at making it deep into the playoffs if they can stay healthy in capital letters.
Absolutely.
I agree. And then I love it when Robbie says, "True Hadi, let's just score some goals." For once, he doesn't agree with Eve. Eve is not here. That's why. So he
He
agrees
just
with me today.
he immediately migrated towards the next most pessimistic. So
Exactly. I'm not pessimistic. I'm realistic. That's all.
it's all
And,
relative, right? Compared to me, you're
and then you have Patrick says you need a guy that can get you 20 to 25 goal contributions. I don't agree with that, but we're not going to have that discussion again. I think we can have a very good collective team and still make it to the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs. We just need everybody to click and everybody to be healthy. So that's where I agree with Andy. Um, good. Moving
everybody just
on.
be healthy.
Exactly. Just be healthy, man. That's it. Let's take a look at the standings before we talk about the Canadian men's national team. Standings for CF Montreal, they're right now in 12th position with 18 points, 1.06 points per game. If you look at the point per game section, they're tied to 10th position. Of course, they will be behind DC United because their goal difference is lower and they have the same amount of wins. But still, they are very, very close to be in that playoff spot with the return of a few key players. Um, that's the optimistic Hattie talking. The pessimistic Hattie talking. If we had won yesterday, we would have been and we would have been tied with Philadelphia and Nashville.
Mhm.
And for me, that's a very big and a missed opportunity. That's really not good for CF Montreal. They need to win those games. Elias, what do you think? I'll show you the standings again.
Yes, but at the same time, they're not losing, right? They're not losing, and they missed the playoffs by a point last year, right? So who knows? Maybe that's the difference. Um,
But 1.06 points per game, and
it's
that's
not
low.
it's not great. They do have a game in hand. That game in hand is going to be played against Red Bulls, which is kind of difficult. But they have a game in hand, and they have played a lot of difficult teams already. I think the back half of their schedule is a lot more forgiving. There's a lot more home games, first of all, and second of all, it's against I don't want to say easier opposition, but there's less powerhouses, right? And so I think that, if they string together a couple games now that they have this next like 5 home games or their next 6 games, they can get some wins. They can get just avoid losing, especially against teams around you in the standings. They can go into the final 7 or 8 games in a very good spot with everybody, hopefully everybody healthy. So I think they're not in an ideal spot now, but they're like 1 or 2 good weeks away from being in a very good spot. So the second they have, because remember, even last year when everything was going wrong, they had 2 or 3 weeks where they were on it, and to put them back in a good spot. So, and they were rock bottom in the league, and to put them back in playoff contention. If they're already in an okay spot, a good 2 3 weeks, and you're in an excellent spot. There's still 2 points out of the playoff spot at the end of the day, right?
They don't have 4 home games in the next 5 games. By the way, they're playing at home against the Red Bulls, then away in Colorado, at home
Yeah.
against Philadelphia, away in New York, and then
Oh,
at
I thought
home
that was
against
called.
White.
It's
No,
because
and then
all
at
these
home
damn
against the
blue
Whitecaps.
logos, they all look alike.
and
They're all the same.
then at home against Whitecaps, at home against Atlanta, and then away in New York against the Red Bulls. So no, I think before the Leagues Cup, that's what's I think going to be very important. And I follow your logic, and I agree with your logic. If you look at the Leagues Cup, that's going to start on the 26th of July. As of right now, you still have 8 games to go before the Leagues Cup. You have out of those 8 games, you have 5 games at home and 3 away. I think you need 3 to 4 wins at home.
At least.
That's for sure. Like you need to win against Toronto. That's going to be very important on the 20th of July. You need to win against the Whitecaps, against Philadelphia, against New York Red Bulls. Maybe not, but Philadelphia, I think, is going to be very important. And you need to maybe go and grab some points away from home. In Colorado, in New York City, or at the Red Bulls. I think that's going to be the toughest 2 games. The game against the Red Bulls at Satsupuro and at
In
New
Colorado.
Jersey in New Jersey against the Red Bulls on the 17th of July. So we'll see. But again, we're not far. We're not far. In points from a playoff spot. I think we deserve to be in that spot. So hopefully we will see the team get better in the next few days, next few weeks before Leagues Cup. Because I think that if you want to make the playoffs, you have to be in a playoff spot by the end of July. You have to be. You don't have a choice. No?
At least within a game of it. Yeah, I agree with you though. It's tough when
If
you're
you
in
want to
13th.
parity
It's
make the
tough when
playoffs.
you're in
Yeah.
13th place, and
Yeah, but like again, if you add 8 games to the games that we played, you would have already 25 games played. So you would have only 9 games left.
it's 27 points. A lot of it can happen for 27 points.
True, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. That's going to be very nice, I think, in the next few weeks to see CF Montreal, in that sequence and see what they're going to be able to bring on the pitch, if they're going to be able to bring results. That's, I think, going to be very, very interesting. Moving on, Canadian men's national team. We were really trying to wait patiently for Jesse Marsch Copa America squad. It was released on Saturday. I was lucky enough to be able to go to the press conference and see what he had to talk about. Let's talk about the players that were selected. So we had Dane Sinclair, Alistair Johnston, Luc de Fougerolles, Kamal Miller, Carl Hebert, Samuel Piet, Steven Eustachio, Ishmael Kone, Kyle Laren, Jonathan David, Theo Bear, Jason Russell Rowe, Derek Cornelius, Jacob Schaffelberg, Moise Bambito, Maxime Crepeau, Dejan Buchanan, Thomas McGill, Alfonso Davies, Junior Hoylett that unfortunately wasn't able to make it at the end, and it's Joel Waterman that is replacing him. Jonathan Osorio, Richie Larea, Liam Miller, Mathieu Chouanier, Tani Oluwasei, and Ali Ahmed. 26 players. Are you in agreement with Jesse Marsch's choices?
Ça sent la coupe. No. Uh, it, my biggest takeaway from this is actually the fact that there's now more CF Montreal players than Toronto FC players on the national team, which is always nice. We always love to see that. But I think honestly, from a stylistic point of view, I think that Jesse Marsch has really covered all his bases with this group. I think that no matter how he wants them to play, I think there's an 11 in there for him. We know that Jesse Marsch does have his style is recognizable and what he wants out of his group. But if he wants any kind of, adapting depending on who they're playing, if you're not going to play Peru and Argentina the same way, and I think that you know there he has everybody he needs right now to play in those different kinds of ways. So it, now the pressure's kind of on him to make sure that his 11 is picked properly and he has the right approach to the game. Because when you look at we have a very small sample of Jesse Marsch with the national team, right? We have two games, two very different approaches, and two very different results. And I think this also leads back to the fact that I wanted a new coach before Copa America. Not we got one before Copa America, but not like a week before. Please next time. But this games like that are where you kind of make your mistakes and you learn. The problem now is he has to extrapolate an entire tournament's worth of lessons after from only two games. And I really liked what I saw in France because it was organized. It was even going forward, right? There were moments where they were dangerous. And I think that it was danger coming from not just Alfonso Davies, not just Jonathan David, from all over the pitch. And when they didn't have the ball, everybody understood their responsibility and understood. And that was a far cry from that second half against Holland, where it seemed like they were playing against, Trinidad and Tobago, or I won't call them out specifically, but just like any kind of CONCACAF team that you expect to beat during a qualifying tournament. So I really his adapting to the situation was not lost on me, and I really liked the fact that he kind of did not necessarily do a 180, but did definitely change the team's tactics significantly against France. Does that give me any kind of hope for Argentina? Not necessarily, but it does make me believe that they won't just get played off the pitch completely and get humiliated, which is what you want, right? You want to maybe put up a good fight. You want to have, maybe even try for a result, but ultimately you want to set yourself up with confidence for the next two games against Chile and Peru. I think that's more important than going out there trying to shoot the moon against Argentina, messing up, and then losing 5-0. So with that lineup, he has everything he needs to at least get out of the group stage.
I agree. And what I like is the flexibility that it gives him, that lineup gives him. I think that sometimes John Herdman and even Moribiello at one point were so, how can I say it, but so rigid in the way they want to play. I'm not talking about tactical formation or anything. I'm talking about the roles that each player must have within the tactical formation. They were so rigid that you didn't have those different types of players that you can have in the squad. What I like is that, yes, you're going to have a player like Alfonso Davies as a left back if you play with a back four, and it seems that that's how Jesse Marsch wants to play. But you're also going to have a Kyle Hebert that can play as a left back, but that's also a center back that gives you that extra option, or even Kamal Miller that can also give you that option as a left center back, more conservative left back in a back four. That's what I like. And the same thing, yes, you do have Kyle Aaron, you do have Jonathan David, but at one point you need other types of strikers, other types of players. And that's why you have Tani El-Wasei. That's why you have a Theo Bear. They're different. They bring something different.
I really can't wait to see Theo Bear out there.
That's going to be very interesting
it up
too.
In Scotland.
Exactly. And again, you have a player that's like Liam Miller. Liam Miller can play on all the left wing. He can play left back, left wing back, left winger, and even inside forward on left. Like,
Mhm.
cutting it inside more often than really playing on the wing. He can play all these roles, and that's very interesting too. And again, on the right side, you have a Luc de Fugral. He can play as a right center back. He can play as a right back. That's going to be interesting too to use him. Same thing for Alistair Johnston. That can be very conservative, or can be that wing back that's goes forward and gives those
Mhm.
exquisite crosses. So that kind of I think makes Canada less predictable than they were under Herdman and Biello,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
agree.
what I really like. Now, I still think we need to have a clear approach to those games, and I think it's going to be very tough. I do not think we're going to move past the group stage. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. The thing that we want is not to be humiliated, and want to make sure that we believe that we can try and get out of the group stage. At least I want to believe that we can try to do that, because right now that's what the players need to believe in, that they don't need to say like what John Herdman that did in a World Cup, saying we're gonna go and Croatia. That's not the way. That's not the way to go
That's
about
not
it.
the way. No.
Exactly. You need to know that, hey, you know what? We're gonna go. We're gonna fight tooth and nail. We're gonna just go and fight as much as possible to try to gain a point, maybe get a lucky win, maybe get a lucky goal, maybe get 3 points here and there. It's going to be tough. Very, very strong teams in that group. Let's look at that group. So, again, for the people that don't know, we're going to Copa America with the first game being played against Argentina on the 20th of June at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be played in Atlanta. Second game for Canada is going to be on the 25th, and that's going to be on the Tuesday against Peru, and that's in Kansas City. And then again, the third game will be in Orlando, in Florida, on the 29th of June, again at 8 p.m. against Chile. So the second game against Peru is going to be at 5 p.m., and the other two games are going to be at 8. It's weird that you have three different venues that are completely very far from each other, and that's going to be a big challenge, I think, for the Canadian team, but it's going to be the same for the others. So I don't
Mhm.
know. I feel that logically, when you look at that group, we should finish last. Let's not kid ourselves.
Last.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. If we look
That's
at that group logically, but I still think that we have a chance of finishing second or third if we play our games right. But logically, if you look at that at the group, we should finish last. That's my opinion. What do you
I
think?
don't know about that. I mean, I think you're selling them short. I don't know.
Mm,
Look, based if you go off of the way if they approach the games the way they approach the Holland game, where it's we're going to play this way and no other way, and I don't care what happens because this is the way we're playing, then I agree with you. They're going to get played off the pitch and they're going to finish last, and it's going to be disastrous. But if you play with the flexibility and the that eye for being more pragmatic that they used when they played France, I think that they could, best case scenario, they find a result against Argentina, which is again highly unlikely, but they did it against France, they could do it against Argentina. And I think that they give Chile and Peru a very serious run for their money. And I honestly think that, it's by no means a foregone conclusion. I think that they definitely have the personnel for it. And my only concern is again the fact that this is still a very, very new group with relation to their manager. I think that's the only thing that could potentially throw a wrench in this is just the fact that Jesse Marsch has not had enough time with this group to make it stick, which is it's a very real possibility. I think we'll know after the Australia. I think we'll know after the Argentina game whether or not that's true, and I think that could probably give us a better idea for the rest of the group stage. But what we saw against France, if that can be not just replicated, but you know, put forth against most teams, they have no business not getting out of the group stage.
I don't know. We have a few questions here. So first of all, Patrick says surprised they didn't call another attacker to replace Hoylett. Not surprised at all. In my opinion, they have 5 attackers already, and they have whatever they need as wingers. I think that Waterman is the right pick. I think you need that leadership in the squad, and he's going to bring that, even if he's not going to play. Were you surprised?
Did seem a bit out of yes initially, but then I looked at the lineup and it made a bit more sense. But yeah, no, there was initially a bit of surprise when I found out because see, I think I like a lot of other people thought that it wasn't an injury, it's just that Luc de Fujihara was going to play with the U20s, and then you have Joe Waterman slot in, which makes sense because you don't want someone like Luc de Fujihara rotting on the bench because realistically he won't really play during the tournament. But the Harlot injury, then I look at the roster and you know what, I tend to agree with you, right? I think his inclusion is necessary. I think regardless of who got injured, he was the next guy up, and I don't think they're going to compromise having him there versus just filling out a positional spot.
We do have another question from Roberto. Are you guys worried that we seem to have trouble scoring goals? He's talking about the Canadian men's national team. Honestly, I'm not. I'm not as worried as that. We played against the Netherlands and France, so we had a few chances. I know we lost 4-0 against the Netherlands, but for me, we were very, very good for 55 minutes, 54 minutes. So, then we lost track in the last 30, but I think we were very good for the first 50 minutes, 50 to 54. I don't remember how much, how many minutes, which minute they scored. No, I'm not really worried about them scoring goals because I think when they learn the Jesse Marsch ways, you're going to see a team that's going to create a lot more chances than under Biello or under John Herdman. And we saw it because when you look at the games against the Netherlands and against France, they had some very clear-cut chances. At one point, we have good strikers. We have a Jonathan David. We have a Kyle Larin. I know a lot of people hate on Kyle Larin, but he's still the best scorer in Canadian history. For men's, for sure. Of course, he's not. He's no St. Clair, but I think we have the talent to score goals. We just need to create more chances, and we need to believe in the way we play. So I'm not really worried about that. I don't have anything else to add regarding that question, or we can move on to the
Just
other
a
one.
cautious optimism, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's a pressing problem as bad as the women's team, for example. But it's
Mhm.
definitely not giving me the warm and fuzzies and a boatload of confidence.
And then we have so Patrick very optimistic, saying if they keep playing like they played against France, they can beat Peru and Chile. I don't agree with that, and I give you. You know what? I'm gonna give you why. I'm gonna give you why I don't agree with that. Do you guys know the results of the Chilean teams before the Copa America? They were able to go to Italy, play against Albania. That's a very good team in Europe, by
Mm-hmm.
the way. I don't know if you watch Italy Albania, very good game. They beat Albania 3-0 in Italy. And then they lost in Marseille against France 3-2. They were able to score 2 goals against France. And then they went to Chile and they won against Paraguay 3-0. Chile is really, really good now. So I'm very, very cautious when talking about the Chilean national team. And then the Peruvians, in the last 4 games, they have three wins and 1 draw. Yes, it's against smaller teams. Like they beat Nicaragua, Dominican Republic. They were able to draw against Paraguay, and they won in Philadelphia against El Salvador last Friday. So they're very confident right now, that Peruvian team, and they're young. If I remember correctly, they have a very young squad. So it could be a surprise to play them. I don't think it's going to be that easy to play them. So I'm very cautious talking about the talking about the opponents of the national team. And then we have Roberto saying, Elias, they have not shown that they can beat teams outside CONCACAF, and that's true. That's true too.
until
So
they do. But no,
yeah,
no, I agree with you, Robbie, and I think that's definitely. But actually, you know what? I'm not kidding. Until they do, right? And at some point, get to the next step. You have to beat teams outside your confederation, and
yeah,
what better time than the present?
yeah, exactly. Why not? Maybe it's gonna happen. You're right.
Why? Why not?
Now let's go to social media, my friend, to close this up. So that's the social media segment.
Yes,
So,
lots of good tweets
Elias,
out there.
you're the king now. You can go pull out the tweets and talk
Oh
about
no.
everything. You can do this.
Yeah, so first tweet, this is from Tony Marinaro. Breaking: CF Montreal attacking player Sean Reyes going back to the CPL. He'll be joining Atleti Ottawa for the rest of the season. Hattie, what do you think of this move? Sean Reyes, who obviously won best under best young player of the year. What was it, 2 years ago? With was it Valor? It was Valor, yes.
Valor, yeah.
And you know, do you think there's a way back into MLS for Sean Reyes,
Yeah.
or is this really where he's gonna maybe thrive and maybe settle?
No, no, no. There's a way back into MLS for Sean Ray, I'm pretty sure. If he does well, pretty sure maybe the Whitecaps would take a look at him. Maybe another team too, since now I think Canadians are homegrowns now. So there's a possibility for Canadians to go and play with an American team. I think that's a possibility. Look at how many Canadians the Timbers have. So that's maybe a route that some other MLS teams are going to follow at one point to go and get players that are going to cost a bit cheaper than European players or South American players, and that can be those depth players in the squad. So if he does well, the Canadian in the Canadian Premier League with Ottawa, I don't see why not. And I think he's very talented. Um, let's wait and see. It's a possibility. He needs to grow and evolve, and he needs to maybe win because being the best with Valor is something, but being the best with Atletico Ottawa, that's topping the league right now, that's something completely different. Are they going to be able to? Is he going to be able to? First of all, fight for first team place, a regular first team position. A regular starting 11 position. If he is, that's already a big step up. And then is he going to be able to be decisive? And that's another one. And is he going to be able to help his team win the trophy for the first time in their history? And that's the third thing. If he does all that, pretty sure there's a lot of teams that will take a look at him.
Very interesting. I think we all want what's best for him. We love our homegrown players,
Yeah.
and yeah, hopefully he finds his way back to one of the higher leagues for sure. Next tweet is from MLS Move. Says a lot. It's a picture of United States men's national team under Greg Berhalter versus CONCACAF. 47 games, 34 wins, 5 draws, and 8 losses. It's a 72% win rate. Against the rest of the world, which they are most likely to play in Copa America, they are 9 wins, 8 draws, and 7 losses, a 35% win rate. Talking about CONCACAF teams in general here, Hadi, with obviously the US right now being the foremost of them, what do you think of CONCACAF's chances in this tournament? And, worst case scenario, they all get bounced and they all just get manhandled this tournament. What do you think that says about CONCACAF, especially with them hosting a World Cup in 2 years?
Honestly, CONCACAF is weaker than the CONMEBOL. That's for
Oh,
me
that
not
goes without saying.
exactly. So even if they're brushed off, they all eliminated in the group stage. I don't think it's a problem right now because
Are you not concerned with maybe the best of CONCACAF not being able to compete with the mid table of CONMEBOL? I don't expect them to
no,
play and beat Brazil or Argentina, but you know, or even Uruguay,
no,
but Chile,
I'm not.
Peru,
I'm not
Paraguay, no.
concerned. No, I'm not concerned because at the end of the day, playing Copa America and playing the World Cup are two different things. You know, I don't think it's going to be a problem because you're not going to have, you know, you're not going to have the same style of player. What I think is the problem with the CONCACAF teams is playing against those teams that have a very good physicality. And that's the trademark of the South American player teams. They're very aggressive, yes, very technical, but also very, very aggressive. And I think that's where the CONCACAF teams have a lot of trouble. So that's the reason why, for me, it's not very concerning because when you go to the World Cup, you're going to play against Asian teams, you're going to play against African teams, you're going to play against European teams. It's not only going to be aggressive and physical teams. And for me, it's going to be completely different. And again, you're going to be playing at home. Canada's going to be playing at home, which is going to be a very big difference. If you look at all the other um, teams in the CONCACAF, they barely play at home. Most of the time, any competition that they play in the States. So, so I don't know. I think if we're all if we all fall in a group stage, the only team that should be very disappointed are the US because they're playing on home soil. The rest, Mexico, we all know they're between two generations
They're in
right
a
now.
rebuilding process.
Exactly. So not very worrying. Canada, they're still very young. Not very worrying. So yeah, no, I wouldn't be very worried.
Awfully optimistic take from you, Hattie. I'm surprised. I do agree. I do agree with you in some respect. I do think that if they get destroyed, then maybe it's a little bit of a concern. But if they get bounced, it's not the end of the world as long
Yeah,
as they
no,
put up a
of
good
course.
fight.
Of course, we,
Uh,
we can't get destroyed. If we are destroyed,
no,
that's a big problem. That's something else.
score one goal in the entire group stage destroyed. That's what it is. Um, yeah. All right, on to the next tweet. This from Mathieu Charon. We're talking here, and I don't want to get upset with his performance. This is last week, but he's at 4 goals now, and if he continues like this, you could talk about the increase in sale value for Sanusi. Pretty sure we could already sell him for more than $1 million. Adi, what do you think about, given that Sanusi's still, 21, 22 years old? He's been in good form now, but not just Sanusi. Of the group that CF Montreal has now, who do you think has the best resale value? Who do you think could be that next Ismail Kone, George Mihailovic, Alistair Johnson that they could sell for several million?
It's hard. It's
Is there
hard to
someone?
say. I think that the best player of the team is Machichwania. As simple as that. The thing is, when you look at market value, you look at the age and the contract too. Machichwania is 25. Like if you go to a European team, he's not going to be sold for 10 million.
No.
He's maybe going to be sold if he has another year when he comes back from Copa America, or he does well in Copa America and comes back and does well also in CF Montreal. And when I say well, very, very well, maybe he could be sold for about 4 or 5 millions, like Georgie was able to be sold, but he's far from that level now. I think that we can get about 2 to 3 million for Mathieu Chouanière. But again, I don't see anybody else getting more than 2 to 3 millions. For Sanusi, we paid him peanuts. I think for when we got him here, 1 million is pretty good. I think we can get to 2 because he's younger. Maybe 1 or 2 million, and I think that would be a very good sale. That will be a very, very good sale if we sell it for 2 million. Now, the rest of the players, I don't think we have anybody that really has a big market value. I think Nathan Saliba has the potential to be very interesting. Jonathan Sirois too. Mahala Opoku, maybe. Patrick says Opoku, yes, maybe, but again, he's coming back from an injury right now. His value is pretty low. Nobody's gonna put money on a player that just came back from what now a 2-3 month injury. So let's wait and see. But right now, as we speak on the 16th of June, for me, it's Mathieu Choignard.
I was inclined to say Nathan Saliba, especially if he has a breakout year, just because of the age, like you said, right?
Yeah,
But just right now is kind of getting to that point now where it's not now, it may not happen, right? We got to that point with
yeah,
Joe Waterman, and came and it went. Same thing with Kamal Miller, for example.
yeah.
So
I
remains to
agree,
be
but
seen.
Nathan Saliba needs to be better. He didn't have. He's not having a good season yet in 2024. So that's why I think that
Hmm.
nobody's really gonna come and knock on the door of CF Montreal. But if he now has 3, 4, 5, 6 good games while that everybody's in Copa America, I would agree with you. But right now on the 16th, I mean it's Mathieu Choignard.
I mean, Patrick also saying he's saying a season or two.
Yeah,
If he can stay fit, sure, but
yeah,
that's
that's the
a
problem.
massive if.
Yeah,
That has been a problem since day one. That's the only thing. On to the next tweet. Yes, this is from Ivan Charon. My daughter is super happy about the creation of the Northern Super League, already proud to walk in the footsteps of Amy Walsh with AS Brassard, making her dream of having more concrete dreams. How do it's important to kind of set expectations with this league. Where do you see them in 5, 10 years? What do you think is sustainable? What do you think is realistic? What's ideal for you?
I think they could be in the top 6 leagues in the world.
Really?
Yeah,
In 5 or 10 years?
yeah, yeah. Because right now the best leagues are who you have Spain, you have Ligue 1 in France, Division 1. Sorry, you have
Germany?
Germany. The women's league is not that good.
I mean, the best of the
It's like the
German league
Serie
is
A.
very good.
It's like yeah, but we're talking about the league. We're
The
not
league as a
talking about
whole.
a team. We're not talking about a couple of teams. We're talking about the league as a whole,
Mhm.
right? You have even Spain, it's just the best teams, but you have
Yeah.
England have very good teams. You have France, they have very good teams. Um, and then the rest, yes, you can talk about Serie A, you can talk about Germany, you can talk about Spain, you can talk about
I
even
mean,
Portugal is
NWSL
very
spending a
low.
lot of money now, right?
NWSL,
They're
yeah,
putting a lot of money into it now.
but even Diana Matheson said right now they're starting with 1.5 to 2 million with a salary budget for
That's
each team.
huge. That's huge.
That's why I believe in that project. It's amazing what they can achieve, and the backing that they have, the
Hmm.
financial backing is wow. And right now, yes, we are behind the competition, but I think with that backing that we're having, with so much devoted ex players running that league with Diana Matheson. I'm pretty sure when Christine Sinclair is going to retire at the end of the year, she will
Oh, she'll
join in
definitely come
some
back.
capacity. The Diana Matheson in her project. Maybe she will sign with a team in Canada. Hopefully, we'll see. But that's a possibility. You never know. But you have that backing. That's very, very interesting, and you seem to have investors that are very, very interested in that league. And just in Quebec, the investors seem very, very interested. And yeah, I think the sky is the limit. They were able to do what the men's CanPL weren't able to do, get a team in Quebec.
That
Something
too.
huge,
That too.
huge. So, no, I think the sky is the limit. 5 to 10 years, I would say top six.
It's not completely ridiculous, and I hope you're right. God, I hope you're right. That would be incredible.
And maybe we'll see the daughter of Ivan Charon play with the within that league and maybe with the national team. Hopefully,
I hope so. Final tweet. This is from UEFA. Then and now, 10 years apart, women's football keeps growing, and it's just the beginning. These are two pictures. One showing a half full stadium in Lisbon for the 2014 Women's Champions League final versus the 2024 Champions League final, which was a sold out San Mamés with 50,000 people and also 3 million people watching at home. I just want to preface this with saying you guys are so lucky I wasn't on the show after Barcelona won because I would have been insufferable. But Hadi, 10 years is a massive improvement that we've seen from at least from the Champions League perspective, right? We've
yeah,
seen attendance records broken over and over again. Let's fast forward to 2034, 10 more years from now.
yeah.
What's the state of the women's game? At least in let's keep it in a European context. Or what would you like to see in 2034? This post from UEFA 10 years from now. Where are we in the women's game?
I would say exactly this the where we are right now because right now we're able to maintain this viewership and this attraction. It's already great. That's one thing. Second thing, and that's more behind the scenes, all those people that really spit on a women's game, we can shut them up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to see in 2034. That's what I want to see because you don't even realize how many people I talk with and they tell me, women, I don't follow that. I'm like, why? Why? Like, yes, it's not the same thing as the men's, but it's as enjoyable, even more sometimes because it's a lot more tactical. A lot more tactical.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in tactics, follow the women's game because tactically you can see everything that the coach is trying to do. Everything. And it's the most sound tactically that win.
That's
And
true.
I don't know. I think it's amazing. It's amazing because you can see like how a coach thinks when you're watching the women's game. And honestly, that's something that really excites me a lot because I don't know, it's amazing. And then again, you have so many good players too. It's just wow, just different. You appreciate the women's game differently than the men's game.
Mm-hmm.
They're both awesome.
No, there's
Great to
definitely
watch.
enjoyment for both. If
Exactly.
you look at absolutely, I think the one thing I'd like to see 10 years from now is some sort of maybe not catching up, but yeah, catching up from. We have the elite now that are operating at an incredibly high level, but it feels almost like anyone who's not as elite, there's a steep fall off, right? You have teams like Barcelona who scored 140 goals this season, who didn't lose a single game, and who drew one. You have, uh, the second best team in Spain. It's not even close. Germany, it's very much similar, right? You have Wolfsburg, you have Wolfsburg, and you have Munich, and then you have a massive gap between the rest. England is a little bit closer, but again, you have Lyon, PSG, and then Paris FC as well. It's close, but then a big gap. So I think what I'd like to see in 10 years is maybe that gap shortening. I'd like to see it also in the international level, but I feel like it has to start somewhere. But that gap shortening is probably what would be even better for the game because then not only do you have everything you love about the women's game, but you also have more competition, you have more competitive teams, and you have the capacity for more upsets right now. Because watching Lyon, watching PSG, watching Barcelona, watching even Chelsea, Arsenal, or City in England, there's very little suspense when they're playing anybody from the bottom half of the table. So I think that will only improve not only the quality of play, but also improve the show. Because even I, as a Barcelona fan, sometimes it's difficult to watch a full Barcelona game because if you're up 7-0 at halftime.
Yeah, but that's, I'm sorry, but that I don't. Yeah, it's, of course. Okay, one sec. In France, I don't see that big of a gap. Yes, sometimes you do have the lower teams of the league. Yes, they're very weak. I agree with you, but you have five, six, seven teams that are very good. At one point, you had Juvisy that were playing and that went to Champions League final. You have Lyon, you have Paris, you have Bordeaux. You
Mhm.
have some good teams. Was it Bordeaux? You have some good teams. Yes, of course, they're not as good as Paris and Lyon. I agree with you, but the gap is not as big
Not in France
as
or in England, you're right, but in other
exactly.
leagues, it
Yes, I
really
agree.
is, right?
I agree with you.
NWSL has done a great job in making it. Again, their salary cap is a bit more restrictive, but NWSL has done a better job of making it a bit more competitive, I find. But I think ideally, the women's game has improved so much over the next 10 years that we see that in every league where it's that gap has reduced significantly. And there's not many leagues that are you have a team like, you know, like Bayern this year or Barcelona this year that just, kind of
Yeah.
strolled to the title.
No, no, I agree. I agree. There's still a gap, as I said, but it's getting smaller and smaller
Exactly.
in France. So yeah, hopefully, yes, of course, in 10 years, hopefully we'll see that. But even in the men's game, right? You look at La Liga in the men's game, most of the
Yeah,
time you
but
have Real and
how many
Barcelona.
times
So
did Real win 6-0, 7-0 this year?
not a lot, but still, in the standings, you see that difference.
That's true. That's true.
So, so yeah. Good. So I think that's gonna wrap it up. I hope you
That
guys
does.
really liked our show today, even without Eve. Um, guys, as you all know, I think I always say that at the end of the show, but I always wanna give the option to everybody. Our show is always going to be free. That's not going to change at all. We want the show to be free because we want it to be accessible to everybody. But at the same time, if you want to encourage us, you want to be you want to be with us, you want to help us grow that product here, feel free to go and become one of our Patreons. And for just $5 a month, you can just help us to grow the product. Continue on delivering a good product for you guys, and it will help us a lot for sure. So that's it for tonight, Elias. Thanks a lot for being
Of
here
course.
today. I told you last week that Eve was going to go on vacation for 3 weeks. Now it's my turn to go on vacation, so I'm not going to be here for the next 3 weeks too. So Elias will hold the fort. I'm pretty sure it's going to be
Absolutely.
amazing, and he's going to have, of course, special guests every week. The Ball is Round doesn't stop. The show never stops. We move on. We continue. We thrive. We try to offer the best we can for sure. So thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you, Elias. Good
Of
luck for
course.
the next 2 to 3 weeks
It's gonna be so
animating.
optimistic. I'm gonna drive you guys crazy. It's gonna be awesome.
And I'll see you soon, guys, and everybody, all the listeners. Thanks a lot for being here. See you in 3 weeks for me, but next week on the Ball is Round for another episode of that great podcast that you all love.